Awakening Your Everyday Wisdom, Religion. I was a little nervous about presenting this video, concerned that I might be stepping on some landmines here. I know a lot of people are very passionate about their religious beliefs. I'm not here to promote or demote any particular organized religion. Well, I take that back. I do not feel inclusive of Satanism or any other hateful religious practices. I just don't see how hate can be a part of a spiritually based religion. That's my bias. My belief is in love, and that's where I'm coming from. Religion can be very valuable to us on an individual, personal basis. It can help us guide our lives. And in society as well, it can help us be more civil as a social organization. Well, we've all seen exceptions to this, of course. And we humans are working on our spiritual development throughout the whole world. And some of us may have further to go than others. We're all on this path together. But will we ever achieve ideological coexistence? Right now, when I look around the world, I don't have a lot of confidence that we're going to reach sustainable global peace. But there's no reason to give up hope. I'm hopeful that our species at one point in time will be able to find religious tolerance and acceptance. That's why I'm presenting this video. Religious wars are very confusing to me. I'd really like them to stop. I know there are a lot of factors, but the question comes up for me. Is it our ideology that causes us to kill other people who don't subscribe? Or is there something innate in our species that causes us to kill each other, and we use religion as an excuse for our killing? I don't know. Starting with the foundation of a few definitions. My source is Merriam-Webster. Religion is the service or worship of God or the supernatural. Commitment or devotion to a religious faith or observance. A personal set or institutionalized system of religious attitudes, beliefs, and practices. A cause, principle, or system of beliefs held to with ardor and faith. Here's a little chart that I developed while I was doing some of my own research. I thought I might share it with you. It's based on the information that I found through internet and other sources. And I really don't have any point of reference to know whether the resources I'm using are the right resources, or if the information I found is the accurate information. There's no way for me to know. So I am very open to correction on this information. If you'd like to join my blog, please do. Let's take a look at Christianity. And these are the 3 or 4 questions that I did my research on. 1, is there only one God? 2, do we only live once? And what about life after death or reincarnation? Those are the areas I'm exploring with this chart. So with Christianity, there is one God. Even though I have heard that the original Bible spoke of gods, plural, And then when Jerusalem was burned down, I can't really tell you what point in history, and the scriptures were rewritten, it changed from gods to God. I'm not quite sure if that's true or what the dynamics were in that, but it is just something that I remember hearing along the way. But with Christianity today, there is one God. Heaven and hell are real. And only acceptance of Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior will get you into heaven. Otherwise, you'll perish and live in fiery hell for eternity. And the 10 Commandments are key to Christian life. And some Christians do believe in reincarnation. I understand some from the unity faith. So with Judaism, there is one God. There is a world to come, Olam Haba, but it might not be like heaven and hell. And the purpose of life is to follow the law, set an example of holy living, and have faith in community. With Islam, there is one God, Allah. The Quran is the main source of teachings sent by God. There is life after death, Akira. Death and resurrection only occur once. Then we live eternally, either in the garden or in the fire, depending on how we lived our life. Acts of goodness and fulfilling Islamic obligations are key factors. There are no second chances. With atheism, there is no God, there is no afterlife, and the purpose of life is to survive the best you can on this planet, just like all the other animals. With Hinduism, there are many deities representing aspects of the divine. Some Hindus believe there is a supreme deity. Naraka is the Hindu equivalent of hell, where sinners go and are tormented after death. Swargaloka means the good kingdom and is the general name for heaven. Living a good and ethical, balanced life is important, and the concept of karma is key. In Buddhism, there is no external God separate from his creation. Humans have a divine nature which is connected to all that is. Nothing is permanent, not life, not death, not suffering, not wealth. There's a cycle of death and rebirth called samsara. Through karma and eventual enlightenment, one reaches nirvana, which is the end of all suffering. And the path to enlightenment is through morality, meditation, and wisdom. So that's the comparison I did. I'm not saying it's complete and thorough and may not even be accurate. Remember, I gave a disclaimer at the beginning. I'm searching, I'm looking, I'm pondering. And as I was doing this research, as is typical with a lot of research, more questions opened up and reopened. So I want to share a few of those with you, because these are the things that I'm mulling over in my mind, and I think, well, perhaps there are others out there who are mulling these same things over. So these points start with the question, what about? So what about some of the Christian concepts that I was taught as a child that really didn't make sense to me? Now, I grew up without a father, so I kind of had a lot of mystery about how fathers work. But I had to question, would a loving father sacrifice his only son? And would he send all of his children, or the naughty ones, to live in a fiery hell for eternity? It kind of scared me, I thought, well, maybe I'm glad I don't have a daddy. I don't know. It was very confusing as a child. And then what about the people who were born in different cultures that had different religious beliefs and practices? Were they automatically condemned to hell just because of where they were born? I couldn't get my arms around that one either. And then I came across the notion that there are some Catholics who believe that only Catholics are going to heaven. And I thought, wow, well, what about the Protestants who do accept Jesus as their Savior? Are they going to go to hell just because they're not Catholic? That was confusing. And then I did see hatred and a real kind of a smug attitude. Like, we're the right religion and all the other religions, well, they're just condemned. And I thought, that doesn't seem very generous. So those were some of the things that bothered me in my Christian upbringing. I totally understand if some of the Christians in the world think I'm just way off base. I really understand that. I'm not trying to argue it. And then I said, well, what about the hatred and distrust of Jewish people? If they are God's chosen people and they're here to set examples on how to live by God's law, why is there even such a thing as anti-Semitism? I couldn't get it. And then the violence. That really doesn't make sense to me to this day. All the violence, hatred, mistreatment, and genital mutilation of girls and women in the Muslim traditions, really, I don't get it. They're scary and they seem very inhumane. And I know that there's a confusion between Sharia law and other Muslim practices. Not coming from that part of the world or that orientation, I don't understand it, but I am really questioning it. And what about some of the hatred that Muslims have for other Muslims if they don't follow the Sharia law? Seems like they're willing to kill their own kind over these laws. That doesn't make sense to me. And then a big question came up. I watched a documentary just very recently. So it was all about how the wealthy Muslims in oil-producing countries are donating huge sums of money, like $20 million, to universities and demanding control of the curriculum. And that seems to be taking place right now, according to this documentary. So I go, well, what about that? Is that really happening? And then in regards to religious belief systems that don't recognize life after death or reincarnation, what about the people who have had near-death experiences? Now, I know science is trying to explain that in non-religious terms, but if you watch some of these stories, they are pretty convincing that there is life after death. And then they have these kids, these young children, who wouldn't have any way of knowing some of the details that they report from their previous lives. If you watch some of that, and these kids don't appear to be lying, they're just reporting. Like this one young fellow, he was a pilot in a previous life. He knew all kinds of stuff from that life that he couldn't possibly have known as this young kid here today in America. See, that makes me wonder, I guess there is such a thing as reincarnation. And then there's past life regression and hypnotherapy. Sometimes it comes up and the hypnotherapist is surprised by it. And then there's this notion that there used to be references to reincarnation in the Bible, but they were rewritten and removed around the 6th century. True or not true? How do we know? And then there's the concept of the Akashic records. Those are, I would say, non-physical records of everything that has occurred in a person's life for the beginning of their soul. So if they went through reincarnations, all of that stuff is included in the Akashic records. And one of the reasons people access Akashic records is to find out more about their spiritual mission and their spiritual history. That's a whole nother topic that we're not going to delve into right now. So let's talk a little bit about New World Order. The concept of a New World Order is being met with resistance today. I guess you could say I'm part of that resistance, but then I look at it and I go, well, maybe we should think about this a little bit more. The concern is that if we had a worldwide government, it would be controlled by the very few at the top. Now, that might already be happening if there really are only 13 families in charge of all the wealth of the world. We've already got it. I think we've heard references to the cabal. Actually, if there is a new world order, some ills on our planet might be healed by it. Things might get much worse. So we have to take a look at this. If we, everyday citizens, have any say at all, we might not have a bit of input on this topic. But let's take a look at the Baha'i religion. And they speak of 3 principles in a new world order. I'll read them to you. 1, material culture and spiritual culture should be harmonized in an orderly way. 2, both the material and spiritual aspects of culture should be dynamic, progressive, and new, corresponding with the stage of human development and the concrete needs of humanity at each stage of its development and each stage of its civilization. And then 3, at the present time, both material and spiritual cultures must assume a global, world-inclusive approach for solving the emerging problems of humanity. Those are kind of interesting. I don't know how practical or pragmatic or doable they are, but I think worth investigation. I concur with the concept that we need to address global environmental issues in a global, cooperative way. All of us live here, and it's all of our responsibility to take care of our planet. That's where I'm coming from. I also think we need to find ways to work out the whole issue of migration. Migration is very natural in the animal kingdoms. Humans are animals. When I said this to my 5-year-old grandson, he says, "Humans aren't animals." And I said, "Yes, we are." He had a hard time accepting that. But migration happens in many species, but somehow we just can't seem to work it out for humans. And I think we need to, because we're getting into a lot of trouble over it. Another issue that needs global attention is that of starvation and food disparity. The United Nations estimates that 25,000 people worldwide die of hunger every day. Think about that. This is staggering. And yet, on the other hand, approximately 300,000 people die a year from obesity. So it seems like we ought to be able to work this out a little bit. If we do have a new world order, I hope that's one of the first issues that gets addressed. Now, the World Health Organization might be that first step. I don't know. I've heard some doubts about the intentions of the WHO, and I think that we ought to pay attention to any global structure. What are its goals, and how are those goals being met, and who are the people being served by those goals? So, we'll take a further look, I hope. Even though there are statements in the Quran that speak of killing pagans and non-Muslims, which is scary, I think that there's some effort being made today to clarify those statements, because they do cause a lot of trepidation in more peaceful, loving nations or religions. But in reality, from the research I've done, most Muslims are peace-loving. I don't think we see those folks on the news. We've seen the bloody pictures and the sadness and the plight of women and girls. And it's really scary, all the violence and the fires burning and people screaming and raising their hands. And that paints a picture. But it's not the only picture. And I think those of us who are watching things like that need to use discernment and do our own research to find out, are these just the wild radicals, or are these really people speaking for the whole religion? And we have this in Christianity too. We've got some pretty radical folks out there. So let's just take a closer look. When it comes to religious propaganda, that's another thing that we need to use our discernment on. Sometimes religious propaganda is used to convert people, to share the word. Other times it's used to isolate people, make people wrong. Again, further investigation. Thank you for listening and participating in this video. If you'd like to chat, here's my email address. Feel free to contact me. I'm here to provide support. And please like, share, comment, subscribe. Thank you very much. Blessings.